Well, Twitter is now joining in on the investigations into the Russian interference in the U.S. presidential election. You know, this week the social media giant shut down more than 200 accounts it says had ties to Kremlin operatives. Twitter releasing a statement on these inquiries, saying, quote, "Based on our findings thus far, RT, that's Russian Today, spent $274,100 in U.S. ads in 2016. In that year, the @RTCom, @RTAmerica, and @ActualIDadRT accounts promoted 1,823 tweets that definitely potentially targeted the U.S. market. These campaigns were directed at followers of mainstream media and primarily promoted RT tweets regarding news stories. So can this apparent Russian invasion be stopped before the midterms next year?" Daniel Hoffman now joins us. He is Vice President of SPG, Senior Vice President there, and former station chief for the CIA who specializes in counterintelligence, cyber and counterintelligence investigations. I mean, Daniel, everyone's now going, oops, you know, they're saying, look at all this stuff, thousands and thousands of ads. First of all, why wasn't this detected by Twitter or by Facebook during the election?
Well, you know, these were attacks which took place in the run-up to our election and during the election. Incident response phase is still ongoing. That's very disconcerting. You know, in good cybersecurity, you want to do the forensics and mount countermeasures within minutes, not months of an attack. And we failed to do that in this case. The delay is disconcerting. I'm just not so sure that Twitter and Facebook and some of the other social media and networking sites had the capability effectively to track those intrusions.
Do you count this, and is this considered a cyber attack? I mean, people, you hear about that, you think of someone trying to, you know, coming in and personal ID being stolen, financial information being stolen. But by planting news stories potentially intended to affect an election, do you consider that a counterintelligence assault on this country?
I do. I think it's part of Russia's counterintelligence strategy. Look, social networking and media sites have become the backbone and critical infrastructure for our modern democratic process. And aside from introducing disinformation into our election campaign, which I expect them to do again in the future, I think Russia also sought to degrade the public's trust in these media sites in the United States, in the West writ large, but also in Russia, because Putin is looking at the elections in Russia in 2018 in March, and he knows that his own opponents were protesting years ago in 2011 and 2012 with the assistance of networking sites.
So, I mean, it seems they were really sophisticated. Washington Post reports that 3,000 ads, 3,000, were aimed at, for example, supporters of Black Lives Matter, that they had some type of Black Lives Matter ads, specifically in Ferguson and Baltimore. Remember the troubles there. Others aimed at Muslims or people who didn't like Muslims, according to the Post. I mean, they really have an apparent sophisticated political operation here.
I think the messages that they delivered were very sophisticated and indicate a deep understanding of our internal domestic political situation. However, I think the means of delivery was not necessarily so sophisticated. It was discoverable. And what causes me concern is that while we may have discovered some of Russia's intrusions in our cyberspace, there may be others out there with far more sophisticated clandestine techniques that we may find more difficult to detect.
Is there any evidence that you know of so far that there was any type of coordination in order that they knew where to go, they knew who to target? For example, we have learned that 21 states where apparently the voter registration rolls were targets of some type of cyber attacks. Was there an effort to try to get the voter registration information of voters and then target ads for them to try and influence the election?
And I think that's a great question to ask. That would certainly be high on the list of Russian intelligence requirements. And they would be eminently capable, with their incredibly large presence in this country, to obtain that intelligence, whether they needed to do it clandestinely, whether they could hack into our election infrastructure to do so. You know, there's probably lots of avenues for them to collect that intelligence.
Yeah, the local state officials say that they have no evidence that anything was successful, but it's certainly at least they tried. Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, you know, founder of Facebook, of course, is fighting back on this. Let me play you what he says and see if in your view, his response is sufficient.
We will strengthen our own ad review process for political ads. Now, to be clear, it has always been against our policies to use any of our tools in a way that breaks the law. And we have many controls already in place to prevent this. But we can do more.
So do you think that's going to be enough, as we got the midterms around the corner, then, of course, the next presidential election?
Listen, I think this is an existential threat for our nation, and there's a lot more to do. I think probably three things. First and foremost, we need to collect more information. That means that the social networking and media sites need to do a historical review, because it's not just the 2016 election, it's probably before that, and it's ongoing. The intelligence community needs to collect strategic intelligence on the Kremlin's plans and intentions. Secondly, we need to mount technical countermeasures. We just have to be careful about the extent to which we're transparent about that, because the Russians will be tracking what we do and trying to stay a step ahead of us. And then third, I really think we need the Congress to step in with some legal framework. I understand there's a bill being proposed in the Senate right now which would apply some legal rules and regulations, and I think that would be welcome.
Do you think that'll work?
Well, I think it's a great challenge, but I think we need a partnership between our government and the private sector, an expanded partnership with focus on the IC working with the private sector.
And what's the IC, intelligence community?
Yeah, similar to the way we prevent terrorist attacks by sharing intelligence. I think we need to be able to do the same thing and work proactively with the private sector.
It's a cyber terrorist attack on our country and our democracy.
We're absolutely under siege from nefarious foreign actors, and we need to do something about it.
Under siege. Yes, Daniel Hoffman, and we will stay on it here at Fox News. I thank you, and thank you for your analysis this afternoon.
Thank you.
Of course.